Hey guys, welcome back. Today, with the NHL season upon us tomorrow, but probably today by the time this video uploads, we thought we'd bring to you our predictions on where we think each NHL team's going to finish in their division. You've probably seen a few people doing this around the place, but we're not going to do points or anything like that. It's just going to be where we think the team's going to finish in their division. So we've got Pacific, Central, Atlantic, and Metro. And as you can see, you've got your yellow borders. That's basically outlining the teams that we believe are going to finish in the playoff wildcard spots. But yeah, so as we go through it, it'll show you not just what teams are in each position, but the ones we also think will steal those wildcard spots. But yeah, so from there, I'll hand over to Jaden, and he can get us kicked off with his number 8 position
Yeah,
of the
my number
Pacific.
one. My number one being number bad. Yeah, pretty standard for me. I've got the San Jose Sharks here at the bottom of the Pacific, and no real shocker there. It's like they're in a rebuild type retool. They sold Carlson, and I don't know much more to say. They've just got to go through the waves of emotions now and go through this rebuild, make sure they get the correct assets, and basically just trying to keep trading for profit for their assets. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I can't see them taking any steps forward. I only see them sort of going backwards, especially, with Carlson loss and all the rest of that. But this team needs to do it. They need to hit rock bottom, have a full clean out, and then go again. So, yeah, I guess bad season, but hopefully it's for the best and it can lead to something good in the next 3 or 4 years for them.
Yeah. Um. Bright sides. They do have a few good picks like Granlund and Bordelot coming through. Some youngsters, but other than that, there's not too much upside for the Sharks at this current moment. So I guess on to number 7 for the Pacific on your side.
Number 7 on the Pacific from my side. I don't think this is a shocker either. I have seen a couple of people have them a little bit higher, but I feel like they were all Ducks fans. It's the Anaheim Ducks.
Anaheim Ducks. I've got the same.
Yeah, it's look, they obviously get picked second in the draft. Leo Carlson, he's got some talent about him, and he's going to obviously help that team. Definitely looks like he's going to be there on opening night. But I still think there's far too much. There's just far too much young blood that needs to be sort of turned into a proper core. And there's just too many other issues to address as well. So yeah, look, I can't see. I still think these guys are a couple of years away, but I like the fact that they're gonna obviously blood Carlson. You got Zegras, McTavish, sort of. They'll continue to grow. So they've got the young lads there coming through. Drysdale just signed a 3-year uh, bridge contract, which is good to see. And obviously they've got a couple of other young lads coming through in that defense as well. So look, I think it'll happen for them, but I just don't see it this year. I think yeah, we shouldn't
Well,
see him 32nd,
yeah. Well,
but
they've done a good
yeah,
thing. Like they got the Zegras contract done. That took a while. Drysdale with the bridge. They got Carlson, who they just picked up at number 2 overall to come through. Honestly, like a lot of the foundation is there now. They've just got to basically. You want to flip the assets like Henrique and Silverberg. You don't want them to go to UFA and just lose them for free. So at the trade deadline, you're probably looking to flip them for whatever you can. That's probably the big upside for them. Otherwise, it's just looking at the depth and youngsters continue to progress and develop. But honestly, just probably another sour season for Anaheim until they get a little bit more experience and whatnot into the young talent.
but it's not the worst thing. They've still got their first round draft pick. They got a few draft picks this year as well. It's another one of those years that you're just wanting them to get some prospects through the window and continue that rebuild, because I still think they're a good 3 years away from being anything major. So
Yeah.
yeah, but definitely steps in the right direction.
Oh, definitely. On to number 6 in the Pacific. For me, I have Vancouver Canucks.
So far, we are on the same path. I've got them there as well.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. On paper, honestly, a decent team. They just put Quinn as the captain as well, so hopefully that has some positive things. I had some good talking points from Jack Hughes about him being captain and whatnot. So I think that's a good solid foundation that they've got the captain. He's young, probably next 10 years. They've got a great roster, honestly, on paper, like Kuzmenko, Pedersen, etc. It just doesn't seem to pan out during the regular season, for whatever reason. Hopefully, Demko has a bounce back season, back to like his 915 instead of a 9 save percentage. So, honestly, I could see them overperforming this, but until they get over this hump that they're in, whatever it is that's causing it, I've got to have them at 6 here.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you there. I mean, you've got like they brought in who was it? Hronik late last year, who's a good up and comer. Ian Cole they brought over as well, but Ian Cole playing on Tampa, Carolina, Colorado, I think were his last 3 teams. So his plus minus is always good, but he's on defensive powerhouse teams and good teams. So it'll be interesting to see how he does on a Vancouver team that lets in goals like
Well,
the
hopefully
Anaheim
he's
Ducks.
part of the solution. That's what you're looking for here.
Well, that's what you want, and hopefully he does bring in that veteran presence and all the rest of that sort of stuff. But yeah, look, I look at their roster and I just think they've made a couple of decisions like the Quinn Hughes thing. I think that was really good and a big key of obviously keeping him on board. They've obviously got Elias Pettersson and all the rest of that sort of stuff, but I'm not seeing enough here that's going to see them jump the board and be in a wild card spot. I think they're going to probably be around the mid 80 points mark. But yeah, I think that's probably about
Which
it.
is worrying because this is the last season of Pedersen's contract, and he is an RFA, but maybe he decides to walk or something. But you got to re-sign him too, so he'll get a payday, especially with salary cap going up. So a lot of your new salary cap will probably be tied into Pedersen, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate timing.
Oh, it
So
is, and
so
they have a heap of UFAs as well. Like you look at their entire bottom 6, Dakota UFA, Pavillier UFA, Bluger, Lafferty UFA. You look at their defense. Their second line defense is up. Meyer and Cole, which I mean they are older lads, so it's not the worst. But yeah, it's just I don't know. I'm thinking overall they're below average as a team, I think, and that's why I think they'll finish
well,
below
they ended the
average.
season hot. Hopefully, they can start it hot instead of last year. But
They
yeah,
do that every year.
yeah,
they finish
yeah.
seasons hot, and then they start the next season. Everyone's like, "Look at how we finished," and then it's just same story. But yeah, all right. Let's move on to the next one. Maybe a bit controversial this one, but I still have them making the playoffs. And no, it's not the Vegas Golden Knights. It is the Los Angeles Kings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have them at number 3.
Yeah, I thought you'd have them a bit higher. I have a feeling a couple other teams are going to jump them this season. And I know they got an okay return for sorry, they brought in Dubois, but I just feel like I'm still not sold on it. And I feel like the loss of Velarde and Iafalo might hurt them a bit, and there's still questions out about Dubois and his whole demeanor. So yeah, I'm not sure. Their goaltending tandem also worries me.
Yeah, I was going to bring that
It
up. Yep.
worried me. It worried me all last season. They haven't fixed it. It still worries me. um, there's a lot of people saying Quinton Byfield is due for a breakout season, and I think if he does have a breakout season, you may possibly see the Kings um, do a lot better than where I've got them at fifth. But like I said, I still have them making a wild card spot. So it's not like I'm sitting here going, yeah, they're going to finish on 80 points and be dog shit in fifth place. I just think there's a couple of teams in the
No,
Pacific,
we,
which
we
is
can both
crazy.
agree that we see them making the playoffs.
Yeah,
They got a strong team, strong defense. It is that goaltending tandem that is a worry. Um, so, and if maybe a Byfield and maybe a couple other players could have a little step up, that would be good. But honestly, they're one of the teams that have a good at least three lines of core depth there. So that is the good thing about them. Obviously, they're bringing Dubois, so their center depth is really good now. Dano being on the third, or however they're going to play it. Um, so I can see them being good. I can't really see them taking a step back, though. They still had some problems last regular season that they had needed to iron out. And yeah, it is that goaltending. That's why I see them probably 3 to 5. So honestly, these top five, you could have them in any order, and I think you could have a reasonable uh, argument
yeah.
for it.
I I
But
think we're going to have the same 3 to 5 and probably the same top two. It's just going to be a question of where,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
unless of course
So
you've done something
it will
completely
be
different.
minuscule points in between these teams, so it is where it is. But both LA making the playoffs there.
Yeah.
I guess moving on to number 5 for me. I've just got to check who I did have there. I have the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, they're just one up for me in fourth place.
Yeah. They have a somewhat young team. They had that amazing system that they were playing last year that was working really well. It's a matter of fact of can you repeat it? Do the kids take another step? Like they got a Beniers and whatnot that could hopefully take another step. Grubauer hopefully has a better year. Maybe Decord has a better year. So the goaltending's still a little bit of a question mark. But solid defense, just solid core. It's just I don't think it's going to overwhelm crazily, but I think it's still an amazing, at least honestly, just top four lines. So I see them comfortably making the playoffs. Whether it's going to be 5-4 or third, it's just a matter of how well they play to their system that they did last year. I think that's the key.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and that's why like I've got them. I, it's a question mark for me on are they going to have a little bit of a shaky season after what they did last year, or are they going to be able to stick to that system that they did so well? Can they get some? Can they get playoff Grubauer in the regular season as well? That'll be another question mark. Um, but yeah, like you look at it and that all four lines are solid. Forwards, all three lines are solid in the defense. It's overall their system's really good. They're coached very well, and I just think they've got a team built in terms of no major superstars as good as Benias is and that like that, but they've got depth. They really do. Like you look at that third line, and it's got obviously this is according to Cap Friendly at the moment, but Tolvanen, Yanni Gord, and Borkstrand. Uh, 31, 48, and 45 points on your third line for a total of 52 goals. That's a pretty solid third line. Plus you got Burakovsky, who was injured last season, should hopefully play a full season this season, which would be good and beneficial as well, because that's probably another 20 plus goal scorer that they were lacking. So, they've got goal scorers all through the lineup. Yeah, I can't see them missing out on the playoffs. I guess if they were, it would be because a central team maybe did a little bit better than what we thought, or maybe the Vancouver Canucks have a good season. But outside of that, I think they should definitely make it.
Yeah, I think it'd be down to that really. That if Vancouver or whatnot had a better season, or if someone in the Central had a crazy season, as we have 5 in the Pacific and 3 in the Central making it. But honestly, sound team. I really just think it's the goaltending. Maybe they address it halfway through the season, before the deadline. but I'll be waiting and watching that. Your pick?
All right. Now moving back, I mean, it's probably pretty easy to understand who this next team's going to be. Missing out on the playoffs last season, but I've got them back in a big way. It's the Calgary Flames.
Yeah. See, I was tossing between 3 and 4 for Calgary. I think they're going to bounce back strong. A lot of
They should.
one goal losses last year that kind of defined their season. You know, they had more points than Florida, and then you look at what Florida did in the playoffs. So it honestly, I see them making the playoffs probably pretty comfortably as well. And it's going to be a big bounce back. And I think some people will sleep on the Calgary just from where they finished last season.
Yeah, I think it was a real disappointing season for them last year, but you know, you had the likes of Huberdeau who just couldn't really find his groove at the new team. Lindholm obviously losing Goodrow and Kachuk. Um, so they finally had a season together. Kadri was very fresh last season as well. Um, and then they've added in Sharangovich, who really, you know, like you look at his 13 goals in 75 games, but that was on the fourth line. Honestly, getting not utilized correctly at all, in my opinion. So
He's
if he
got a
can
good
get
shot.
he's got a great shot. So if he can get some top 6 minutes, he's a 20 plus goal scorer every day of the week. Um, and then like you look at their third and fourth line, like Blake Coleman, Backlund, and Mangiapane, like they can all put up 20 goals in a season. They were all really close to it last season, and that was in a you know poor
Yeah.
season. So yeah, like you
I
look at
think.
it and go,
Yeah.
they've
Sorry.
got to bounce back, right? They've got to bounce back. Like
Well, I think
they-
it basically dependent on Markstrom. Markstrom bounces back.
mm,
This team bounces back. He had just a down year, and I think if his numbers go back to where they've been in the past, then Calgary will be easily top 5. So it it really, that's what you're hoping for as a Flames fan, is just a little bit of a bounce back from Markstrom, a little bit bounce back in front of him as well, and then that short up, they've added some goal scorers. I think it's probably hopefully smooth sailing into the playoffs for Calgary.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
all right, number 2 and number 1. We'll see which orders we have them in. I have at number 2 the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, look, I don't like it, but I've got them at number one. I
Yeah, no,
just, I just,
I tossed and turned on it too. I don't think it's going to be a
yeah,
great difference. It would probably be like 5 points or something. There's probably going to be nothing major. Um, like I've just got concerns with, like, how does Skinner have another great season in regular season anyway? They had goaltending issues during the playoffs, and how much does that hurt this regular season? But they do have a good, probably 3 lines in forward. They get a full season of Ekholm, which is great. So, or hopefully, barring injuries. So, I think that their decor is solidified by him, um,
mhm.
just in himself. But I just think Vegas have the better, stronger team. So that's
Yeah.
why I have
Look, I
Edmonton at 2.
I agree that they've got the stronger team, as in probably playoff caliber wise, and
I
and
just
you
think
know
depth. That's still.
complete depth. Yeah, I agree with depth, but I feel like we've seen it with the likes of Toronto and a few other of those teams that yeah, those superstar players like McDavid and Draisaitl and stuff, um, they can carry you to a top 2 finish in the home and away season without having a fantastic lineup. But I look at this team from what it did last year in the home and away to what it's this season, and I'm looking and going, well, they've got Ekholm for a full season, which really solidifies their biggest issue, which is their defense. Um, and does that lead to someone like a Skinner or a Campbell having a lot better time in net? Because like you look at it and go, Skinner had a 913 save percentage with an Edmonton Oilers defense in front of him. Like that's pretty impressive. Like I look at that and go, that's wild. If you can actually get Ekholm, who knows how to play defense, and sort of improve the likes of Bouchard, maybe help Nurse and Cece on that first line. Like if he can be that real veteran presence, I feel like Skinner's going to have an easier time. Campbell's going to have an easier time in net, and that's just overall going to lead to more points because they finished a point off Vegas last year.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it would be the
yeah,
same.
I just
My concern with Edmonton as well is just Draisaitl played 80 games and McDavid played the full 82 last year. I just think if they miss any sort of span, kind of like McKinnon did with like 15, 18 or something games gone, I think that will hamper their season just a bit. So that's where I feel like it's going to play into them finishing number 2.
that's always the issue with the Edmonton Oilers is if McDavid and Draisaitl go down, or even just one of them, it's going to have a massive effect across the team. So yeah, if they're healthy, they'll finish 1 and 2. If one of them misses 20 to 30 games, they potentially slip. But it's hard to sort of bank on that happening because you never know.
Yeah.
A lot of players play
Yeah.
82 games every year, so
Alrighty. I guess finishing it off, no surprise what you have there at number 2 and me at
I
number
don't
1.
think I have. I was going to say I don't think we have to really say it, but Vegas Golden Knights. I don't think either of us are expecting a Stanley Cup hangover in terms of their finishing in the division, but yeah, I'm not sure they'll be as strong, and I'm not sure if they can go back to back, but I still think they're going to be relatively good in terms of overall.
Yeah, well, they don't add anything this off season. They only lose a couple pieces. So it is what it is. That's what happens when you win a cup. But I just don't see them losing too much that it's like, oh, now they're just horrible or anything like that. And they keep all the core there, which is good. So that I can't really fault it. Obviously, they just won the cup. I guess you could still point at the goaltending, though he had a great. Hill had a great regular season and postseason. Obviously, Thompson there as well. Similar numbers, but they have a good defense in front of them. They play a good system. It's hard. It's fast. There's, they got scoring throughout all 4 lines. It's just honestly, hopefully, the injuries and whatnot through the playoffs do not hurt them at the beginning of the season. That hurts their overall results at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if they can stay fit and healthy, and the goaltending tandem can have a similar performance to last season, I think they'll cruise to either 1 or 2, definitely a top 3, in that Pacific. But I guess it all comes down to, we saw 2 seasons ago, they had a few injuries, they had some goaltending worries, and it all went to shit and they didn't make the playoffs. So it could definitely happen. But, as long as they stay healthy and their goaltending tandem can do what they did last year, there's no reason to think that they won't finish easy 1-2 in the Pacific and sort of start their journey on a back-to-back cup run. Whether or not they can do it, I think that's another question. But who knows? They did it last season. No reason they can't do it again. All right. Well, that's the Pacific done.
I guess we are moving on to the Central. It is my pick. So starting off with the Central, obviously 3 teams making the playoffs. We think this is probably the weakest division in the whole entire league. But starting my pick, I got the Chicago Blackhawks. Even with picking up, oh, so that's your pick. But
it's all right. Leave it there because I've got the Blackhawks as well. So
yeah, I'm just filling it out for you. It's like if you don't have them there, nah. Even with Connor Bedard, I guess they get Connor Bedard, like they get Taylor Hall. They added a few pieces, Felino and whatnot. So it's like their team actually looks a lot better on paper than I think people are giving credit for. I just don't think it's enough with how the likes of other teams are improving or still have in their roster. So I think they're probably at least another this year away from getting off the bottom here and maybe finishing 7th or above.
Yeah, I just they're talking about Raquel as well, coming through, who should be looking good. Apparently he looked all right in preseason. Bedard, obviously, the big prize number one draft pick. But yeah, like you do have to ask the question. Taylor Hall's come through. We have seen him do it with a number one pick before in Nico Hischier and the Devils, but he's a little bit older than what he was at that time. He's 31 now.
Yeah.
Not to say
I
he's
don't
not.
think I don't think he has it in him to do that type of season again. It'd be
Yeah,
it'd be
and
Bedard
that's
doing
what
that season, if anything.
Yeah, but that's what it's sort of it's gonna lean on, right? Like Bedard's got to be um, phenomenal from the get-go. Taylor Hall's got to be able to sort of like tap into that 2017 Devils, which was 6 years ago, and Corey Perry, who it looks like is potentially going to be on the first line with Bedard, and Hall. Um, he's got to sort of step up as well. So, and he's 38 now. So I feel like there's just too much just on that line and on Bedard himself. Whereas you look through that lineup and go outside of that, they've got very young players coming through in their defense. 22, 19, 21. So, and they played combined 15 games last year. So yeah, I feel like they don't really have anything else outside of Bedard. They've got a couple of things happening, obviously, and like I said, you
Yeah.
got Raquel coming through, but I just don't think it's enough. They'll be really for Chicago. All you're looking for is, can Bedard really step into the NHL and be a superstar from the get-go, or is he going to take a little bit of time? Can you see improvement in Reichel? Your young defense that are coming through, Radish, and the likes of that. And then outside of that, it's really just hoping for the best. And
Yeah,
that
well, they've
you
got a lot of
perform
picks
as best you
for
can.
this year and next year, so that's all it's about really, just developing the youngsters and getting more picks. So on to number 7, your pick.
On to number 7. This one was. I know you said at the thing. It's the weakest division in a sense, but it's also one of the ones that's hard to pick from 7 to probably 3. But I've got the St. Louis Blues.
Alrighty, I've got them at number 6. St. Louis
One up.
Blues. There we are.
I mean, these guys could fight for a wild card spot. I think that's the trouble I sort of had with it.
Oh,
I'm
sorry, you
looking at what they
cut out
did,
for a second there.
what done and stuff like that, and I'm like, do you know what?
Mhm.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah, so I looked at it and went, this St. Louis Blues team, I could see them competing for a wild card spot, but I could also see them finishing 7th in the division. What do I think is more likely? And I think it is that finishing 7th in the division. So, they've got the players, and you said off air, I think, about the Verana and Hayes sort of in trade ins. Like you look at that third line, Verana, Hayes, and I can never say his name, Samuel Blias, or whatever his name is from New York Rangers that they traded in. That's a three new players and 3 players who are under the pump to perform. So that line could have massive keys to their success if they can all perform, because there is pressure on them. They were all sort of ditched from their club. It wasn't like St. Louis traded them because they were hot commodities. Detroit wanted to get rid of Verana, Philly wanted to get rid of Hayes, and New York Rangers wanted to get rid of Sammy. So there's pressure on them. But if they all come out and perform, who knows what they could do? They also picked up Kasperi Kapanen. So they've got some potential, but that goaltending situation with Binnington is also a terrible worry. And yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to see what these guys are going to do.
Yeah, I guess my biggest concern is like they're basically their best point scorer had a negative 38 last year. In Jordan Kyrou, you had Braden Shen with a negative 27. They bring in Kevin Hayes, who had a negative 22. Obviously with a downed team, but so that is my concern. Obviously Binnington with his theatrics, whatever you want to call it, his little things off the ice, you could say, that are still on the ice. Brings a little shadow over the team, I think, and I think that will still continue this year. I think they'll probably still perform decently, just not greatly. Definitely not like the team that won the cup or anything like that. So I got them missing the playoffs. Obviously, I could see them probably surprising and doing well, but I don't really see them surprising doing well to the point where they make the playoffs.
No, no, me
Yeah.
either. I definitely feel like they could finish higher than seventh. But I think that they could be in the hunt for a wild card spot, but I don't think it's going to happen. And
Alrighty.
then it just begs the question, where to next for them, because they're not a young side.
Nah,
So
no,
yeah,
we've covered
but
it
moving on.
before that the future looks bleak if they don't do the right things. On
Yeah.
to my number 7, I have the Arizona Coyotes. As much as it pains me,
Oh,
I tossed and
this is
turned with this one, with putting them above St. Louis. I think it's very close.
yeah. So I have them at 5
Mm.
because it was one of my hot takes. I just I I just have a feeling they're going to do something. Logan Cooley's signed. He's in the
Mm.
in the building. It's yeah.
I'm exactly the same. I had the hot take all off season. I don't know what it's been that's called me off from it. I think maybe it's just the Kevin Hayes Rana additions that I like at St. Louis that's tipped me them above Arizona. I think Arizona's going to have a good year. So if you're an Arizona fan, I would definitely recommend going and watching because I think they'll do good things. Logan Cooley's goal that he did in Australia against the Kings was absolutely insane. So it's I think it's going to be an exciting team. I think they could. This is probably like the dark horse for me that could outperform so much that they even make playoffs. Like I feel like they have that potential. It's just if they
Yep.
tap into it.
Yeah, look, they had a pretty wild off season as well with some of their inclusions. So what they brought in Zucker, Kerfoot, Matt Dumba as well. So they've been quite active in trying to sort of improve this team. So you look at it and go, oh, and Jersey as well. They picked up from the Kings, so they've they've clearly looked and said, well, we've got a lot of prospects. Our prospect pool is full. Um, you've got a lot of people coming through. You've also got a lot of picks still to come, but it's time for this team to actually play some meaning hockey. And so they went out and did that. They went out and got some players that should help them do that and help them be competitive. You saw last year that the effort that they were putting in, night out, although it didn't work sometimes because they did have a very questionable team, but they still put in the effort. So now with these new players that they brought in, you pair it with that effort they were playing with last year, and you're probably going to see them pack on an extra 10, 15 points, which is going to have them climb those charts pretty well.
Alrighty, your pick for number 6.
My pick for number 6, and although they just had some wicked news in signing Connor Hellebuck and Shifley, I have the Winnipeg Jets at number 6 and missing out on the playoffs.
All right, have them at 5. I don't. I think you're being harsh on them. I think they're going to still have a really good season. I think their roster's really good. Um, I think they get rid of the toxic in Wheeler. They obviously re-signed Shifley, so I'm guessing they don't think he's part of the problem. I don't think those contracts will age well at the end. Obviously, going to like both like 37, 38 years old or something like that. Um, but they've still got Kyle Connor and Ehlers, and they've brought in Iafallo. So I like their depth. I don't mind their defense either. I think they've still got Hellebuck there. I think this team could still surprise, and just how they played last season might be overshadowing what they do this season.
Yeah, look, it's definitely a thing, with Hellebuck staying. I think if Hellebuck left, you'd probably say these guys are in big trouble because he definitely did save that defense quite a lot and has done quite a lot over, the last several seasons for Winnipeg. So that's obviously a big plus. Shifley signing on was good as well because without Shifley, that's probably their only centre. I know they got Cole Perfetti coming up, but he's still quite young, only 21. So having him as your main centre or only centre would have been very questionable. Um, but yeah, that's where my sort of issues lie. I think they're very lacking in that centre depth. IFR's all right. Um, Velarde's a big question mark. I feel like he's a big key to their success because I feel like put up 23 goals in 63 games for the Kings. They'd probably need him to get around that 30 goal mark and play a full season if they're going to do anything. So don't get me wrong, I could definitely see this team finishing higher than sixth, but also I've got my doubts and I just have a bit more faith in the teams I have above them. That's all.
No, that's fair. Alrighty, on to number 4 in the power rankings, just outside the playoffs for me. Probably a hot take. I got the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, it's crazy because now I know who's in your top three, and it is a big hot take.
Mm.
Although I don't have them too far off, but I got the Minnesota Wild in the top three.
Yeah, no, look, it's a good roster. It's a good team. Obviously still hurt by that salary cap issues with the dead cap, but honestly, like they've still got Kaprizov, Zuccarello, um, Boldy and whatnot. Hopefully Rossi can step it up. Uh, I just have a little gripes with probably their fourth line and a little bit. I want to see if Gustafson and Fleury can do it again. I think they've got a good tandem there. I just want to see them do it again. Um, and I don't mind their top probably 4D. John Merrill is all right, is serviceable and whatnot, but it is there. It's just and they obviously got Patrick Maroon, so that's good. What would you say, leadership and veterancy, but yeah, I just have them missing out. Not because they play bad or anything. Just I just think something crazy will happen this year, and that's a team above. Obviously, you can probably figure it out. So yeah, that's just my hot take. And honestly, they could make the playoffs if 4 teams make the Central. I think that's
Yeah,
very very plausible.
and also like I've got them in the top three, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they miss the playoffs at all. Like that three for me, I think the top two for me is set in stone. I feel like they're going to be 1 and 2 guaranteed unless someone does something crazy. But outside of that, I feel like it's there's a big question mark on that third place in the Central. And then that also means there's obviously the 2 wildcard spots up for grabs as well for Central teams to take. Um, and that's where I could see St. Louis or Winnipeg, even Arizona, and obviously who you'll probably announce next or I'll announce next at 4, to take that spot. But it's just, yeah, look, it's tight. I don't think Minnesota down to St. Louis are contenders. I don't think any of them are contenders for the Cup. Just going to put that out there. So as much as I've got Wild making the playoffs, I don't think they're a contender. And I don't think they'll be a contender for a while.
Not till
Just
they
because
get their money back. Okay.
exactly once they get the cap space back, then 100% we can talk about them. But I think they'll still do well because they've got a good enough team. But yeah, I don't have them as contenders unfortunately.
Alrighty.
All right, move on to number 4 for me and your hot take in the top three. I've got the Nashville Predators. Although they had a absolutely terrible preseason, I
Yeah.
think
No, I
they
think a
were
lot of
the
good teams had terrible preseasons in regards to wins,
oh
anyway.
and it is a preseason, so it doesn't matter. But I saw a meme that was all the teams without a preseason win, and it was just Nashville Predators by themselves. Um, so I mean, I don't know how much you take into that and how much weight you put on it, but yeah, I think with the stuff that they've done around, Barry Trotz stepping in as GM and Brunette as head coach. I know you're a massive fan of Brunette as a head coach. I'm a big fan of Trotz and Brunette. So
I think
I
it's a
feel
perfect
like
combo.
I feel like exactly. I feel like both of our our decisions on where we've put them is based on the management side of things and the structure that they will bring to this team. That will just bring out just bring out a next level in some of these players that we, probably haven't seen. Because when you look at their lineup, I can understand why people would probably have them seventh and, maybe even last in the division. But I just feel like these guys are going to be able to bring out the best in this lineup, and the structure that they're going to bring to this team, especially with one of the, better goaltenders in the league in Saros, a pretty decent defensive lineup as well. I feel like they'll be able to get there and get some good results. They'll be solid defensively, and then they just need some good offense out of, their leaders in Forsberg and O'Reilly, and yeah, I think they'll be good.
Yeah. No, same take there. Probably one of the best tandems in the league. Really sound, if not one of the best defenses in the league, honestly. Just how sound it is. Only concern is goal scoring. No players scored over 20 goals last season. Obviously, they're big goal scorers. Like Forsberg didn't play all season. They bring in O'Reilly, who I think is an amazing addition and will work probably like fine wine under the Brunette system. So honestly, I think this is my surprise team that will shock everyone on how good they do. And yeah, like there's always a shock team here or there every season. If you're not gonna have any shock teams, then you just may as well get the standings from last season and paste it in. But this is my shock team. I think they got underrated quality, and I think the Brunette system will really bring out the firepower in regards to offense. And because they already got the defense and goaltending, you don't really have to work on that too much. So, and it's easy to fix. They got the salary cap, so more things can happen. Yeah, I think this will be a surprise team for a lot of people.
Yep. Nah, agree with you. I'm interested to see what they can do. All
All right,
right, let's move
number two.
on to your number two.
All right, number two, I have the Colorado Avalanche. So not number one for me. Pretty close. Number
Yeah.
two. It's probably like a few
Nah, not for me
points.
either. I've got them at number two. I think the Landeskog situation is going to hurt them.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it, right? If they had a full squad, you'd probably solidify them at number one. But Landeskog being out again, but they still have a great team. They bring in so good depth. Players like Miles Wood who have speed, who have somewhat of that depth scoring. Not great, but it's there, and he's physical.
Yeah, it definitely raises some questions.
So I think they've still got all the star players that you need in a top tier team. Great defense. Gorgiev had a good season last season. Hopefully he can repeat and play another 60 probably games. And yeah, if they had a full squad, probably number one easy for me. But because Landeskog's out, it's number two for me.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the Landeskog situation is going to hurt them. And, we saw the injury-prone season they had last season, which raised some questions. But look, they brought in Johansson to sort of help alleviate that. But I just don't feel like Johansson's anywhere near a Landeskog level. So, yeah, I think they're still going to be good. They'll still be solid with the firepower they've got. But I definitely feel like that Landeskog loss for the season, although there are a couple of people saying maybe he'll make it back for the playoffs. Yeah, I just think that that's going to be where they lack, and it's going to be the reason why they don't finish top in the division.
Yeah, but if he makes it for playoffs, that's all you care about, really. As long as you make playoffs and he comes back, then there you go. But
Exactly. You make playoffs and you get one of your better players back, you'd be like absolutely laughing.
all right. So I guess no surprise at number one.
No, I wouldn't think so. Dallas Stars, eh?
Yeah, Dallas Stars. What do you think of them?
Oh, I. It's an interesting one because I feel like they don't have necessarily, although you've got your Bens and Sagrens and Robertson and stuff. I don't think they've got massive superstars other than your Robertson Hints on that first line, but I feel like they're solid. They're solid throughout. So I feel like you've got you look at they've got Tyler Seagren on cap friendly on the third line. You got Jamie Benn on the second line with 78 points. You got Wyatt Johnston, who is a 20-year-old who scored 24 goals last season. They seem to be stacked in the forward set from first, second, third line. I know Robertson and Hints are obviously big names and stuff like that. Pavelski was a big name. Ben was a big name. Sagan was a big name. They're a bit older now, but they're still performing really well. And then you've got a couple of those young lads, and then you introduce Matt Duchene to that as well. That forward group just becomes stupidly powerful. I guess the biggest issue I've got is probably their defense. But when you've got someone like a Jake Ottinger in net, it sort of helps that. You've probably got a bit of a Hellebuck situation there where he masks probably some of their defensive lapses. But at the same time, that's still not terrible in that defensive depth. But that's probably the one area that worries me when it comes to a Dallas Stars lineup.
Oh, it's probably their weakest, but they still have players like Suter and Heiskanen, Lindell. So it shows how good their offense is. And I'm really high on Ottinger personally, so I think he'll have another fantastic season. I think he played well in the playoffs. It was just one of those things that happened. Unfortunate for him. Just things go the wrong way, or team collapsing in front of him. But I still think he played pretty decently. It's just I think they're going to have an amazing season again. Probably one of the stronger teams in the league again. Probably have another deep playoff run again. So it's just really waiting for the playoffs for this team, I think. Same with Colorado. You're kind of just sitting there and just waiting for the April, May and see what happens then. But yeah, no, definitely one of the strongest. When you have like Robertson, Hints, Pavelski's, like just those names in itself, it's just like crazy. So
Yeah,
a lot of firepower, a lot of goals.
You do, and the thing is like they're not like, I know Robertson's coming into the league as an out and out superstar, and so's Hints, but they're not superstars as in they're probably a little bit underrated in a sense.
It's probably just because it's Dallas, like it's the location.
Yeah, that's my thing. I think they're probably really, really spoken about in Dallas, but I think outside of that, they get spoken about.
If this was a Canadian team, it would have been talked about nonstop.
That'd be massive. They'd be superstars, and that's the thing. And you look at some of the players; they've got named stars, but they're sort of a little bit back of the massive, well-known, big name stars. But they're throughout. Like they've got 9 of them in their forward line. Like it's insane. So even if they lose 1 or 2 or even 3 of them, it's still a very strong forward pack. So yeah, it's going to be hard to see them, even if they do suffer some injuries, struggling enough to miss out on playoffs. So yeah, I think you're right there, where it's basically just get to playoffs and see what they can produce then.
Alrighty, moving on to the Atlantic, probably the strongest division in the league, arguably anyway, just in regards to how much depth there is. We starting at number 8. Number 8, I have the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, I think that's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty lock, isn't it?
It's pretty safe bet anyway. I think the other 7 are all competing for playoffs. I think Montreal, though they have a decent team, I just think the teams that are in their division are just too much stronger. If they were in the Central, I think they could be a little bit higher. That's for sure. But they just got to develop the youngsters. Like Caulfield's still got to get a full season out of Caulfield from no injuries. Slavkovsky's got to develop him right anyway. And we'll have to see, does Gallagher play a full season, and does he decline at all? And yeah, there's a lot of it's young at the top, old a little bit at the bottom ends. And then you got the goaltending, Allen and Montembeault. it's nothing to go crazy about. So they've got a lot of holes they've got to fix up on the forward defense and goaltending, and there's not something out and out that I'm like that's the crazy they got the crazy goaltending or anything. So I don't think there's going to be too much hype this season for them, unfortunately. Though they will compete hard and definitely take some wins off some big teams, but I just think playoffs are not in the picture.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with you there. I think they've got all of that talent on that first line with Nick Suzuki, Caulfield. Anderson had a reasonable season as well. But you've got the likes of Slavskovsky and Kirby Dack. So they've even Alex Newhook coming over from Colorado. So they've got players there, and they've got the young core. But I just still feel like they're several pieces away from doing anything. And like you said, in this Atlantic division, it's hard to see a team like that are still missing so many key pieces, really taking it to any of these Atlantic division teams. Because although we probably see a couple of them fall off from last year, you've got three of them that are pretty close to taking that next step as well. So you really do have 7 teams who are going to be competing for that playoff spot in this division, which unfortunately for Montreal, they might not finish, they might finish 27th, 26th in the league, but still finish dead last in the Atlantic.
Yeah, well, and that's when you're competing against the more competitive teams more often. You're going to get less points just out of that in itself. But anyway, on to number 7.
So number 7. All right, this one is an insane one because we just did a video on how we think they could potentially be fighting for playoffs and a few other things, and I've got the Detroit Red Wings at number 7.
I do too, though it's like not
But
by
that's
much. It's like
no,
point wise,
it's
it's not
not,
by
is it?
much. No.
It's not, right? It's like they're probably the lowest, highest point scoring 7th ranked team that you'll probably see.
Yep.
Is one of my predictions. I feel like, I feel like they're just one step back from a couple of those others, and I don't see them overtaking a couple of those teams that we feel like are gonna take a step back this year either. So I feel like they're gonna have a good season. I said it in the video the other day. I feel like Detroit don't have to have a bad season to finish 7th and not compete for playoffs. I feel like they could play a really, really good season, be competing for playoffs, and finish 7th. It's crazy, but I could see it because that Atlantic Division is going to be strong, and yeah, it's going to be a tough fight to the end.
No, I agree. We've already covered a lot on Detroit. If you want to hear more about Detroit, you can see our last video, or even our 32 game preview for this season that we covered on them. So we've done a lot on Detroit. They brought in some good assets like DeBrincat. Like things are looking good. It's just just other teams are just getting stronger at the same time. So it's sort of bad timing, but good timing as well. Number 6 for me, I have. This is probably another hot take. I have the Boston Bruins. I have them falling
This is
pretty
going to
far.
be the biggest. Yeah, this is going to be the biggest hot take between you and me that we've seen because I actually have them second, and it's it's a big one. Like I've got this feeling like they could fall massively. I don't expect them to do what they did last year, but I've just got a feeling that we're going to see something from them that we just didn't expect. Like I think everyone's expecting them to drop to the point where they might not make playoffs or their wild card, but I feel like we're going to see something from them this year that's going to surprise us.
Yeah, well, they've still got the defense. They've still got the goaltending. The best goaltending tandem. They've still got some good wingers and whatnot. It's just they got to get that center situation sorted. That's basically it. If they get that sorted, then they're probably definitely a playoff team. I just think they're going to drop a bit, and then I think the other teams that are getting stronger will just surpass them. Doesn't mean like I reckon from 7th to 1st, like these points will not would not be great at all. So, but I just think they're going to miss probably like 5 points or something like that. Nothing crazy, but I think they'll be playing all 82 games going for it. It's just
Yeah.
I have them making playoffs if they fix their center issue.
Yeah.
I just don't see them doing it because I'm not sure if they're going to part way with Ullmark or Swayman. I don't think they're
Yeah.
going to do that, and that's why I don't see them fixing that situation as of yet.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think your hot take is them finishing sixth and missing playoffs. My hot take is them finishing second. It's like they're two massive differences, but they're both hot takes because I feel like most people probably have them in a wild card spot. They're probably like, nah, they'll make playoffs, but it's going to be a wild card spot.
Yeah,
And it's crazy because I can see all three scenarios. I can see this team just bombing because Allmark and Swayman just can't do what they did last season. The losses in centre, Zaka and Coyle crack under pressure. Pasternak can't have a 61 goal season again. Marchand falls off a little bit because of that, aging issue. Van Riemsdyk doesn't really bring them anything. So I can definitely see them dropping to sixth and being there, but I can also see them just, it going the other way where Swayman and that do the same thing. Pastor goes mental again. Zaka steps up as a true first line center. Van Riemsdyk finds some of his old form. Marchand just keeps being Brad Marchand. Like it's one of those things. Like there's so much potential with these Boston Bruins to go really, really good or really, really shit. Or even just bang average and just make playoffs. So yeah, look, it's going to be interesting. It's not going to be a 135 point season again, but it's going to be interesting.
they're going for 136. Alrighty. On to number 6 for you.
For me, all right. So this is you might have had the Boston Bruins dropping all the way to sixth. I've got a different team that was in playoffs last year, the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Whew, we're full of hot takes today.
Hot takes, right?
I have them missing playoffs at 5, which is crazy to
At
think that
five.
both Tampa and Boston miss.
It is a big call. I've actually got two probably big teams missing playoffs as well. So I think again this Atlantic division is going to be crazy. We could see the exact same teams make the playoffs again.
I hope not, just because they'll be like, oh, really? After
so so do I. But like it's one of those things. Like you could see Detroit, Ottawa, Buffalo all taking three of the Atlantic spots, or you could see them having good seasons, but again, just Tampa, Boston, Florida, they're just too strong and they hold them off. But I just feel like with Vasilevsky, obviously, I think he's going to miss the start of the season, maybe a month or something like that. I feel like that's going to hurt them, and it might sort of just just shake up their season a little bit, and make it a little bit tough to start because I feel like these guys need to start off strong. But look, they still got some serious team like players on their team. Like you look at that first line, 115 goals they scored last year between them, and then even Hagel on that second line. But I just feel like each year we're seeing them get less and less and less players from those obviously two cup victories, and I feel like it's going to start to finally take its toll on them.
yeah, like just my big thing was that I've always said for teams like this in Winnipeg is when your star goaltender gets injured, that Vasilevsky, and misses a big portion, generally that's going to hurt you. And he's had back surgery to get a lumbar disc herniation done, so he's out for probably 2 months. It could be sooner, could be longer, and a back surgery is nothing mild. Also, it's a goaltender, so you kind of don't want to have those type of surgeries, I would say, on a goaltender at least. At least it was nothing with hips or anything, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's like
Um,
hips, right? The two worst things for a goaltender is your hip and your back.
yeah.
Um,
So I hope he can bounce back after the injury and the surgery and everything and be all good. But that's my doubt with them is just the goaltending, and 2 months is a substantial amount of games. I think Tampa's got the team in front that they could have subpar goaltending and still get the wins. But I just feel like this is the season they finally drop out that people have been predicting for the last 3-4 years or whatever it is. So I just think it's finally time that they do, and it just starts off with Vasilevsky being injured.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think they, win their 2 cups, they lose to Colorado, and look, like even that year that they lost to Colorado, people were suspecting that they were going to have a really down year.
Yeah.
And then even last year, it was going to be a down year.
Yeah. So it's a
And
hot take
they
to
still finished third.
at this point,
Yeah,
like you
so
don't bet against Tampa, but yeah.
yeah,
All right.
but
Number 4, making the playoffs. Nothing great here. It's the Buffalo Sabres. Not by much. Like, there's not much points in making the playoffs in this division. I think they'll do it though. I think this is finally the year. How far they go is for you to say, but I feel like this is the year they break the drought.
yeah, I agree with you. I've got them just making playoffs as well with that wild card spot, which is going to be huge for Buffalo because I think they currently hold the longest drought.
Yeah, I think it's 12 or 13 years or something like that.
Yeah,
And
so it's been some time, and I think I think it's time. It's finally come time for them to step up. No excuses now. They've got some really talented young players coming through, doing some massive things. Like you look at that first line with Thompson, Skinner, and Took. Again, well, 118 goals or something they scored between them, which is just monstrous. Um, so yeah, I think it's time for Buffalo. I think if they don't have a season where they're at least competing for that wild card spot, it's going to be a real disappointment. I don't think they necessarily have to make it. I think
you just
fans
want to
would be
play 82
disappointed still,
games. That's it. You just want to play
like they
82
did
games.
last year, right? They were 1 point out of playoffs, but they were in it the whole season.
Yeah.
I feel like as long as they can do that again, it will be disappointing for Buffalo, but at least they show improvements in some of their players. Again, next year you've got Power, Darlene, they're still taking big steps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel
The
like
biggest
this should
question
be the
is their
year.
goaltending. It's just
Oh, 100%.
can Levi just live up to it? I don't think Comrie has a big bounce back. I think he is just your backup. So I think you're relying on Levi to have a good season, and it's or Lekonen. Lekonen. I think that's how you say his name. I forget Lekonen. And yeah, it's really just relying on those 2 goalies. It's a little bit to rely on. I think I just got the good stuff in front. Even if they don't, they'll still get it past the rump. So yeah, finally time to break that drought.
Yeah, definitely. I think if they don't, they'll be sort of disappointed. I think I don't think, again, like I said, it's not playoffs or bust, but I think there will be a resounding thing of disappointment if they don't make the playoffs. It'd be similar to Ottawa last year. For some reason, they all thought they were going to make the playoffs, and when they didn't, it was just this big disappointment. I think that'll be a lot of Buffalo this year. But yeah, I definitely think they're in with the hunt. But it's going to be tough. This Atlantic Division, as we've said, you could have a great season and still miss out on playoffs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All right. So your last team not making the playoffs.
yeah, 5th place for me is the Florida Panthers. Hot take. I think that they're going to be as average as they were in the home and away season last season.
Oh,
And
I agree. I agree.
I just think with the injuries they've got from last playoffs, I just feel like it's going to be a bit too much. And uh, there's a lot of questions on can Bob step up in the regular season like he did the playoffs. Yeah, I don't know.
I personally don't think he does. I think he'll still have that subpar 900 save percentage type season.
Yeah,
Personally with Bob, obviously they brought in another backup. Forget his name at the moment.
Alaris.
Yeah. So yeah, they bring him in as well. I think like I know like Buffalo's in between them, but I think if Florida don't make it, Tampa's the one that takes their position. That's kind of how I'm seeing it right now. they're either going to I can't see them having an out and all season that gives them 1 or 2. I think it's still going to
Yeah.
be that like roller coaster season they had last season, especially with all the injuries that like that kind of bruised up team that you got to go through in the early parts of this season. So obviously you got
Well,
Verhage, Barkov and whatnot. Like still great team. It's just there's nothing selling me that they're going to change what they did in the regular season.
yeah, plus, like you look at the fact that Ekblad and Brandon Montour, who I think Brandon Montour was supposed to be back start of the season. That was the original take on his injury, which has now been pushed out. He's now expected back in 3 months. So you're talking January at this stage, which is half the season. So that's one of your better defenders out for half the season. So there starts to be some real question marks around that, doesn't it? It's like, okay, you got Noah Ekblad for unknown return date, which is supposed to be only a couple of months into the season. Montour, your other really good goaltender, defender. And that's probably two of your better defenders gone for anywhere from 30 to 40 games in the season. So yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised if we see these guys go from Stanley Cup finals to not making the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. All right, number 2 for me. Number 3 for you. I have the Ottawa Senators.
Oh, bold of you to predict that it was number 3.
Oh,
I've got him at number.
I can't see him having it number 1, but if you do, then all right.
Well, do you know what? I don't. I have them at
Oh,
3. Shut
you got me.
up.
You got me. I was like, he's done it. He's done it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, this is probably one of my other big hot takes. I think they're just going to have a great season, be one of the stronger teams in this division, be more consistent compared to what they were last year. I think that is pretty much the biggest key for them. And then obviously they get some players back from injury as well. So that
yeah.
will help.
Josh Norris.
Josh Norris will
Josh
help
Norris is going to
sort
be a
out
massive one.
their depth through the center. So with a Norris Stutzler kind of duo going on, I can't vote against this team. Goaltending, I don't mind Corpusalo, so I feel like he can get the job done. And he's been on bad teams. Now he's finally on a good team, get it done. So decent defense with Chikrin and whatnot. There's not much that I can see that they're not the stronger team out of like the Buffalo and Detroit, the upcoming teams. And I just think they're going to overperform to what people think. Obviously, new owners as well. So yeah, good things in Ottawa.
Yeah, I think definitely some good things in Ottawa. I think the inclusion of Josh Norris is going to be really underrated because I think he's probably a player that they missed desperately last season, only getting those 8 games in, which was extremely disappointing. I think if you actually put him in that team, they're potentially taking that playoff spot off of Florida. So yeah, I think we're both in agreement here. You've got them second. I don't have them quite as high, but I've still got them in the top 3 in the Atlantic. So I think they're going to have a fantastic season. They're my big one from the big 3 in Ottawa, Buffalo, and Detroit that everyone's expecting to be these up and coming teams. But yeah, so good things in Ottawa. If you're Ottawa fans, you should look forward to this season.
Alrighty, number 1. No surprise.
Number 1.
I guess no
Yeah.
surprises.
Big bad Toronto Maple Leafs.
Big
The
bag regular
absolute.
season boys. That's
I was about to say the regular season bullies. The Toronto Maple Leafs.
yeah.
It's hard to go away from them, isn't it? Like, how do
Well,
you?
nah, they like the regular season that the way the playoffs should be built and that they're built for. They've got all the speed, they got the skill. Obviously Matthews, Marner. They bring in Domi, which is great. So they've got a lot. Samsonov, Joseph Woll, looking like he could be, a wall instead of a wall. So the good things there. Obviously, got to get the Nylander situation sorted out. How that all pans out, whatever. But I still think it's a very strong team. probably going to finish number 1 in the Atlantic. It's just really, what are you going to do in the playoffs? That's really all everyone's looking at this point.
Yeah, look, I think it's no surprise to think that these guys will be finishing top, at least top 3 in the Atlantic at the very worst. But it's pretty easy to have them pegged as number 1. But yeah, it is going to be a question mark with that Nylander situation. What do you do in terms of that? And where do you go from there? If they do lose Nylander before the season, yeah, it's not going to be before the season, but early in the season, do you lose him at deadline? Do you lose him for potentially free if you don't sign him before deadline? How does that go and how does that pan out? Also, the inclusion of Tyler Bertuzzi, how does that work out? I think they're the 2 big questions, but for me, these guys are going to make playoffs. They're going to finish high up. They're going to do well in the regular season. And again, it's just going to be the same old story for Toronto is what can you do in playoffs? Can you actually do something? You made the second round last season. Can you go next step and make make the third round at least, make the conference final? Interesting to see.
Yeah, not too much more to say besides just got to get it done in the playoffs. Onto the Metro. At number 8, I have a rebuilding team, the Philadelphia Flyers. No big surprise there. They are in their rebuild. They're doing their thing. Not much more to say there. Just got to go through the process, get your picks, and develop them well. They get rid of Kevin Hayes. I guess the biggest question mark for them is, Tortorella, the type of guy you want in that type of developing young kids. I'd personally probably say no, but yeah, it is what it is, and I can't see him really outperforming this. I think it's pretty much just a flat 8.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough year for them. I'm glad that they agreed to do the rebuild, but it's going to be tough either way. There's not much more to say on it. But good that they went for rebuild finally.
Yeah, you got to make the call. All right, number 7.
Oh, and they did. Number 7 for me, I actually have to think about this. I have the Washington Capitals. I just don't think it's going to be a great season overall for them again. I don't see them bouncing back. It's just, what can you say? I feel like they've invested heavily in getting Ovi to his goal, and that's pretty much all you can look forward to if you're a Washington fan. I can't see them doing anything else. I don't think the team's strong enough. I know they had some injuries last season, but I feel like even without those injuries, I don't think it's changing anything. I still think that they miss playoffs. I still think, I can't see these guys going anywhere, and we've spoken about it many times.
Yeah.
We think this is going to be a really long rebuild.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what you think of the direction that the Capitals have gone in, basically selling their future for Ovechkin. As a Capitals fan, are you happy or sad with that? I've seen a few Capitals fans that are kind of peed off about it, and that the man's going to cost you probably the next decade or something like that.
Yeah.
So you bring a cup, but at what cost? So
Well,
it is what it is, but.
Yeah, like if they sort of just let him go, could they have been 3 years closer to a cup? Like, I get it. Like, he's unless something major happens to him, he's going to break this record. What is he? He's 72 goals or 73 goals away from breaking it.
Well, he would just keep playing until he breaks it. That's the thing.
Well, he's got 3 seasons to get 73 goals. He got 42 and 50. So it's not even 2 full seasons for him to break it. Although with the aging, it might take him a bit longer. But again, that's not really where I'm annoyed about. Backstrom took 9.2. Ovechkin took 9.5. Why did you need to take so much of the cap?
If you can't tell, it's about them. It's about me. I need I need to beat this record. It's about me. I need the paycheck. Like at the end of the day, it's about me. So yeah, like the team's doing it for him, but really he cares about himself. So yeah, it hurts my view on Ovechkin, unfortunately, and his dynasty, and how this is ending. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Washington Capitals aren't going into a rebuild until at least 2025 to 2026 because they're not going to go into a rebuild before he hits his mark, but he could hit his mark next season. So that's all I can say for Washington fans is I just hope for your sake that Ovechkin scores 50 goals this year and then quickly gets the record in the first half of 2025, and then the team can just start to rip the team to shreds, get some draft capital, and start their rebuild. Because I tell you now, if he takes until the end of his contract to get this record, you're literally just you're constantly going to be waiting for the rebuild to happen. The rebuild won't start till 2027.
Yeah. Well, it depends how they go in the draft lottery too, if they're lucky or not. But
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe.
we'll have to wait and see. On to number 6 here. I've got the New York Islanders.
Yeah, no difference there. I'm the same.
Yeah, I think they're just going to underperform slightly. Just aging team. Just basically all the issues that happens with the Lou Lamoriello's team after a while of not getting it done. So I still got some quality, still got some speed. I just worry for their future, and I just personally can't see him getting over the hump this season with how strong the other teams are. So 6 for me. I could see him going as high as 5, but that's probably it.
Yeah, no, I can't see them getting anywhere near um anywhere near the playoffs, to be perfectly honest with you. I think they're in a lot of trouble.
Mm.
I think the Horvat trade was, as much as we said, it was a good pickup for they needed their center and all the rest of that, but it just, to me, it didn't make sense. This team, even with Horvat, isn't going to be competitive come playoffs. So you do have to ask that question: why go and get a player like Horvat? Because his whole 8-year contract is going to be wasted, basically. Like, they're not going to be relevant again. They're going to spend probably the next 2 or 3 years trying to be relevant, whilst Palmieri and Nelson and Pajot, Anders Lee, Matt Martin, Cizikas, all these players just continue to age, and they're not going to make the playoffs.
That's just the
And then
problem.
they're
They're
going to.
too old. That's the problem. Um, just
They
straight
are.
up too old.
It's
Like Horvat and Barzal, great duo, and Sorokin, Varlamov, great duos to build a team around. It's just unfortunately their middle 6 and whatnot and bottom. It's just too old. And they need some youngsters in there. And I don't. They just. I think it's a little bit of mismanaging assets. That's basically it. But unfortunately, that
Yeah,
it seems like they're only on the decline because of that age.
yeah,
All right.
100%.
What's your 5,
All right,
boy? Show me your number
on to
5.
on to 5. I'm quite interested because I think I'd be interested to see if you've gone the other way because I teetered with these guys making the playoffs, but I just feel like they're going to improve, but they're going to just miss out. They're going to be around that mark. I've got the Columbus Blue Jackets in a massive turnaround season from
Yeah,
what they did last
I
year.
am exactly the same. I think people will have them lower. If they do, it's based just purely on last season. I think having Wierenski back, and another Goudreau season, still got Line A. They've made additions. It just seems really solid, a real good foundation for the future. And like I said, I've got them just missing the playoffs, purely because I think another team just has the certain type of players that get it done, and that's pretty
Yeah.
much it. But they're right at the mark now, and that's good
Mhm.
because it's been a while since that Goudreau signing.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was supposed to be this big, big thing. He was supposed to be, bring success to Columbus. Like, that was the whole thing. with Line, like, those two on the same line, it was going to be massive, and it just didn't pan out. But, you've got to look at what happened last season as well. Like, you had Werenski missed the entire season. You had a couple other injuries as well. So, um, it was always going to be tough when that sort of thing happens. But Werenski's back this year, which is a huge piece. I think everyone underestimates
I
how
think
big
everyone's
of a loss
forgotten
that
about him
was.
because he was out for so long. Like honestly,
Exactly.
yeah.
He was one of the better defenders in the league. So,
Mm.
like, having him back is going to be massive. Um, they obviously pick up Fantilli in the draft, which was massive considering
Huge.
he was supposed to go number 2, and they get him at 3. Can Cole Sillinger, Kent Johnston's take, next steps. Johnson looked really good last year. Can he take that next step? Can Cole Sillinger finally step into that player he's supposed to be? And you've got Marchenko, who, 23-year-old Russian, 21 goals last season. Is he going to take a next step? I just feel like they've got so much potential here. Their biggest issue again is probably, can Elvis bounce back?
Yeah,
I feel like
he's had good numbers through his career. It was a really poor season,
so
and I
bad.
think how some Columbus fans went about it also was pretty poor. So he got death threats and whatnot. So that whole situation was pretty bad. Hopefully, he's had a good off season to be able to just clear his head, and then just go forth and just don't worry about it. But yeah,
But they've got some really good prospects coming through. They obviously picked up Damon Severson in that trade and sign, Provorov as well. So yeah, look, I think if you're a Columbus fan, it's not going to be anywhere near what
mm.
that
I think
capitulation
it's
was last
all
season.
up now for Columbus, especially with the
Oh,
Fantilli draft. I think it's all up.
they can't go backwards. And I did make that comment last season. It's probably not the worst, right? Like, oh, you had one really bad season, but you were in the hunt for Bedard. You end up getting Fantilli, who's going to be phenomenal. It's like, oh, we had one bad season, but we've probably picked up a number one center for the next 10 years. So one bad season of Gaudreau for potentially what could end up putting them in a
Mm,
cup
mm.
contending window. Yeah, look, I think upwards and onwards for this team. I can't see them doing even close to as badly as what they did last season.
All right, on to number 4. I have the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, yeah, that's the team that I can't. I know they missed it this year, last season, but I couldn't.
Oh, it was
I
by
couldn't
their
do
own
it for them.
mistake against Chicago and whatnot. Like, if it was going to get it done, they were going to do it themselves. Obviously, they still got Crosby, Malkin. It's hard to vote against those guys. They add Carlson. They already got Letang. I don't know how that's going to work out, if it's going to be positive or negative. But they do have Jari and Net, who is been decent. So I still think they're going to make the playoffs. Once they get to make playoffs, how much of a dent do they make? Who knows? But I think they've got a decent team, a great top 6, a serviceable bottom 6, decent defense. Once again, I'm not too sure about the Carlson Letang combination. Just reminds me of Brent Burns Carlson situation in San Jose. But other than that, I think they make the playoffs. I'm pretty dead set on that one.
Yeah, look, I think, obviously they made some big moves with the Carlson, and then obviously picking up Ryan Graves as a free agent as well. I think that's a underrated get for them. I know we spoke about his, potentially being a bit slow at times, but he was the Devils' number one leader in block shots. His stick reach is phenomenal, and he's a big body. So I feel like on the defensive front, he's going to help them, massively. He was a plus 34 for a reason. Um, so yeah, I definitely think he's going to help them get that playoff spot. And then yeah, if you look at their forwards, they obviously bring in Riley Smith from Vegas, who wins the cup, had a pretty good season. Yeah, for me, I feel like they've made really good additions to this team. to get them back in that hunt.
Alrighty. Number 3 for you.
Number 3 for me, I honestly I don't know where else you could put this team. I don't think that I don't think they're going to take that next step to get above, but I don't think they're going to fall backwards. So yeah, the New York Rangers in no man's land, I guess.
Or me too. Pretty much same thing. Pretty much the same thing as last year. Strong team. They'll make playoffs. It's just really how much of a dent do they make in the playoffs. I would like to see some development out of Lafreniere, but maybe he's one of those players that needs to go to a different location. Once you still got Panarin, Zibanejad, and you still got Kreider, Trocheck. It's a strong Adam Fox, probably arguably at least top 2 defender in the league. So it's hard. You can't vote against this team. I can't see, especially with Shesterkin in net. Like I feel like it's no matter what, it's playoffs. It's just really where they finish. So it's kind of basic, like pretty much almost from this team up. It's like Dallas, Colorado, and whatnot. Just waiting for playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Kako and Lafreniere can take the next step. They were both almost 20 goal scorers last season. I think people underrate what Lafreniere and Kako did for the Rangers last season. Lafreniere had next to no power play time. So yeah, I think if those two can get some special teams time and take that next step. Plus, you've got the inclusion of Blake Wheeler. Does that hurt? Is the locker room cancer transferred? I don't know. But he can play. 55 points last season. It shows
Well,
he
for
can play.
800,000, it's a kind of a steal for the amount of points he puts up. I doubt he'll be locker room cancer because he probably won't be as big shot in that locker room. It's not his locker room, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah.
It probably won't be allowed to happen. But yeah, you've got Will Cooley as well. I watched a couple of his preseason games and he looked all right. So I'm interested to see what he can provide for them as well. But yeah, look, you got to look at it and go, they've got some young talent. They've got some decent older veterans. It's hard to see that they slip out. But also with the 2 teams we're about to announce, it's also hard to see them overtaking those 2 teams.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're just stuck in that spot.
All right, on to number 2 for me. I have the Carolina Hurricanes.
Well, there you go. We had a lot of differences throughout all of the other ones, but we've actually gone the exact same in this one.
So the metro is the same. We'll just forget about things like the Atlantic. It's fine. But probably the 2 favorites to win the cup this year in the Canes and Devils in the same division. It's pretty rough, but yeah, I can't see a flaw besides just goal scoring for this team. That's pretty much it. Solid goaltending in general, great defense, just a great defensive structure. And the amount of times they've gone to the playoffs and fallen out. Normally these type of teams finally break the hurdle and get a cup. So this is most likely their year. I'd say they've only got this year and next year at most, and then the run's done. So this is probably their best chance, besides probably last season. So they got to get it done.
Yeah, so yeah, it's especially with some of these contracts that are coming up, and they're going to come into some cap trouble. Players like Martinuk and I think who else was it? It was Teravainen, I think, is out of contract.
Yep.
Yeah, so they've got a couple of big-ish players that are coming out of contract as well.
Nietzsche's the sign. He's RFA.
Niches, you've got Jarvis, who's RFA, Pesci, and Skate, Brady Shea, he's coming out as well at the end of the year. So it's going to be, if they don't do it this year, there's going to be some real question marks come next season. So yeah, look, but again, as you said, those teams that get there and miss out, get to the conference kind of miss out, get to the and then finally get there. You saw Tampa Bay do it. Colorado did it a little bit. Vegas did it to an extent. So, yeah, well, Washington Capitals, like we've seen it. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is their year. I definitely think they've got the team to do it. They pick up Bunting, which helps in goal scoring a little bit. I could see, Nature's taking that next step as well. Kotkaniemi, I feel like people have been teetering around him to finally take off, and Seth Jarvis as well. So, they're three young players that are continually improving year on year. And if they take that next step again, plus, they added Orlov and D'Angelo on the D core as well. So yeah, look, I think they're gonna have another really solid season. And once playoffs happen, who knows? They've got the experience in playoffs now. It might just be their year.
Alrighty. Final last of the list.
Final.
No surprise. The New
The
Jersey
New Jersey
Devils.
Devils.
I think it's probably been 20 years since they've been favorites for something. Maybe besides the first overall draft pick, but yeah,
They weren't even favourites for that, mate. They weren't even favourites for that. The 2 times they won it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
they go from no, they're not going to do anything to now that they're kind of favourites to win the cup. So there's a lot of pressure on this team. None of this rosters had that type of pressure, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. And it just honestly, like we said, it's probably like the Canes, Dallas, and whatnot. It's just waiting for playoffs, and then how they play in the playoffs. Do they have a playoff team? Are they hard enough, or are they just too small and fast? Kind of like the Toronto, where you have this regular season build, but then you go to playoffs, and because the rules change, you just don't have that squad anymore in a sense. So that is the big question, I guess. Also, just their goaltending. That is only really their big hole in this whole entire team. Goaltending. Fitzgerald said he's still open, even though Hellebuck's off the books now. So I don't even know who would be available anymore besides like Marcus Swayman, and that would be a huge trade. So yeah, I don't know if they fix their goaltending. I know they're open for it, but that's pretty much all you can say in a floor against this team at the moment. And the only team to go 7-0 in the preseason, though, it means pretty much nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's preseason next to nothing. But also it's a good showing to be able to do that, especially with some of the games they played a heavy amount of prospects. So just shows that their prospect pool is looking solid as well. But yeah, look, it's difficult like to see them struggling and taking a backward step. I think they're going to be ridiculously strong again. You look at their 4 lines; they're quite strong across the 4 lines. Their defensive structure is really good. Brandon Smith would probably be the only question mark there. I think Luke Hughes will be a star. I don't think there's going to be any issues. Although him being a rookie, it could, there could be some issues. I suspect you'll see some Simon Nemec come up at some point as well. But yeah, for me, it is that goaltending situation. If Vanecek can have the regular season he did last year again, and maybe you get Akira Schmid stepping in as well, that they could be lights out. But if they have any real shakiness in terms of goaltending, like they did in the playoffs from Vanecek, it could put into question some defensive.
Well, that's the problem with the Vanecek now.
Liabilities.
He's kind of choked 3 times now in the playoffs, and the only 3 times he's gone there. So it's almost looking like he's not a playoff goalie. So you're almost relying on Schmid at that point, and Schmid being the number 1.
So yeah, that's my only worry with them really. Outside of that, it's just a question of will they let the pressure get to them, and also probably what impact does losing Andrew Brunette have. But yeah, other than that, stupidly strong roster. That should again, shit in a top 3 spot in the Metro, cruise their way to a playoff spot, which is insane considering last year we were probably saying, well, if the Devils compete for a wild card spot, it's probably a good season. And now we're sitting here going they're gonna shit in a top 3 spot and probably a top 2. So yeah, great, obviously great team, great. Probably one of the cup favourites, as you said, with Carolina and Dallas and whatnot. But yeah, only time will tell. We might be completely wrong, and our rankings that we've got right now could be absolute horseshit. Who knows? Chicago might make the playoffs. Bedard might just be that good.
Yeah, the ref's looking out for him or something. No, I'm kidding. But it is one of those things. There's a few hot takes in here from both ends. Obviously, not all of these calls are going to be 100% accurate, but the general consensus of teams making playoffs and not making playoffs is, hopefully around the ballpark. But yeah, let us know what you think of our rankings. Yeah, put in the comments. Are you pro Jaden's or pro Nick's in comparison to the list? Or yeah, feel free to comment your list below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. We'll be covering all hockey stuff coming forward. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you.
See you later, guys.